The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
Chiefs, Eagles, it is a Super Bowl rematch.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I want to start off talking about the biggest story for both of these teams, and I really do believe it is with the QBs. That's how this game always seems to play out. It comes down to those QBs. Louis, how do you see it in this game?
Yeah, you wouldn't know that from the national media perspective and a lot of national fans talking about Jalen Hurts. But believe it or not, these games normally do come down to who outperforms the other quarterback between Jalen and Patrick Mahomes. Jalen's had his number in 2 Super Bowls, even though Mahomes won the first one. I think Hurts was the better quarterback. He also won in 2023. It's interesting. They're the only 2 quarterbacks ever that have won a Super Bowl both against each other and have faced off in multiple championships. It's kind of becoming for NBA fans like the Cavs-Warriors rivalry of the NFL, where they're playing every single year in really important games. So I think Jalen Hurts is a huge opportunity that if he beats out Mahomes again on Sunday, I don't know what more you can say to keep him out of that tier 1 list of quarterbacks. I'm sure people will find a way to do it, but I think if he carries the Eagles the way he did week 1 against Dallas and in Super Bowl 59, I don't know what the critics are going to say at this point. So I'm fascinated about this matchup from Jalen's perspective.
I think you're absolutely right. And it's about how he goes about the game. If he is less dependent on his legs, if they don't get in 7 tush-push situations, if it's an actual quarterback duel where it's about delivering the ball to receivers that have an opportunity to catch it, then I think it's a really interesting matchup. I'm just not sure the Chiefs are going to be able to put their receivers in as good a position to actually help their quarterback. So once again, much like the offensive line was in the Super Bowl, there's an apples to oranges comparison that I think keeps coming back into this because of the supporting cast. And I'm a Jalen fan. I was before he came out of the draft, and I do think it makes it a little bit more difficult to compare them. I'd like to just see a clean game where we can get an even tell on them.
A clean game with no injuries, please. Can I ask that? That's what I want. I want a clean game. I want to see I'd love to see a high-scoring game in this one. I don't know that we'll see it. I think that both these teams showed inconsistency at times on offense last week. Obviously, Kansas City for sure did. But I thought even watching the Eagles play, they weren't consistent the way that you would expect a Super Bowl winner to be in the first week of the season, especially against a rival like the Dallas Cowboys. But you look at this game and you look how it's going to play out. And I agree with you, Louis. This is one of those situations where if he wins again, if Hurts finds a way to beat Mahomes again, you have to start wondering, where are you going to put him in this conversation? Now, you can make an argument that the supporting casts are way different. Hurts has a little bit more talent around him. I don't think that there's going to be an argument that you can't really say that that's not true, but you look at this game and it's just one of those things where Kansas City is now in a situation where they are 0-1 going into play the Eagles. If they go to 0-2, that does become a problem, and the pressure is going to be squarely on Patrick Mahomes to make this a game where he says pretty much over my dead body, and are we going to lose 2 in a row?
Yeah, and I'm not even saying that if Jalen beats Mahomes, suddenly he's ahead of Mahomes. Like, I think Patrick still is number 1 in the NFL. Like, undoubtedly so. Over still Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts. But if Jalen goes out and again outduels the number 1 guy in the league, as he's done multiple times, even when he doesn't beat him, like he's right there with him, that should matter more in these conversations about where quarterbacks are ranked. And I just don't think, like, people are still putting, even in our Locked On NFL Top 100 list this offseason, people are putting Jaden Daniels ahead of Jalen Hurts and Matt Stafford. And I think, Chris, you nailed it. Like, the offense last week was definitely inconsistent. A.J. Brown only got 1 target, and it was the last drive of the game. Devontae Smith only had 16 receiving yards. I thought Dallas did a really good job stopping Saquon Barkley in the second half. He had under 70 rushing yards, which was a rarity last year. the only real positive, consistent part of that offense last week was Jalen Hurts carrying the football team, making plays outside of structure with his legs when nobody was open. That's how the first 2 rushing touchdowns happened. It was kind of a mini first half shootout, and yet I still don't think he got enough credit because he only threw for 153 passing yards. So I would love to see him go out there this week and put up the numbers in a win on the road. Because, again, I just think that'll continue to help the narrative that he is an elite quarterback. So I think there's a lot riding on this for Hurts from an individual perspective. But like you guys said for the Chiefs, like this is rare territory. I mean, going down 0-2 to start a season is not like the Mahomes-Reed era.
No, it's definitely not. And it'd be something that I think would be a precedent you don't want to set, but you got to live off of. That's got to push you forward. And I like this rivalry between the 2 quarterbacks because it continues to push. I feel like maybe more so than some other times Mahomes has been on stage at a pre-Super Bowl media event. I feel like there's a lot of camaraderie and mutual respect there. And I think that
totally agree.
Fed upon. But the thing for me, I actually feel the opposite in terms of performance. I want Jalen to put up 250 yards. That's what I'm looking for. Because if he does that, it means he didn't run it in 4 times and he's not tearing them up on the ground. And for me, that's what I think is the driver that moves the offense against this Chiefs defense. If they can keep him to the fact that they're going to give up pass yards and they can keep him in particular out of the end zone, it means he's got to work as a true pocket quarterback. And I think that's the way that Mahomes can actually stay out front a little bit, maybe put up a few more points. We'll see what that defensive front looks like.
Yeah, and I will say this, when you start looking at how this is going to play out, I agree with you completely that it is a scenario where if Hurts comes out and plays, and I'm not trying to take anything away from the guy, but if he comes out and plays and wins with his legs, it doesn't say the same thing as him coming out and playing like a normal quarterback and coming out and throwing for 250, 300 yards. I understand it's not the game of football today. You're going to use your legs as a quarterback. I get that. I'm not trying to take that away from him. But it's a different conversation, whether it's fair or not.
Can I ask why? Production to me is production. I think Lamar Jackson, we don't knock his mobile production or Josh Allen, but for some reason with Jalen, the rushing, even Cam Newton back in the day wasn't putting up 4,000 plus passing yards every year, but everybody said he was an elite player. I'm just curious why the rules for Jalen are different than other quarterbacks.
I'm not saying that they should be. I'm simply stating that that's the way it seems to be. Because
no, I agree with you. I was genuinely asking. I'm curious why people form it that way.
I wish I had a great answer for you because the reality is you're right. Production's what matters. Wins matter. As much as people say that QB wins doesn't matter, that's what people are judged on. It may not be fair, but that becomes reality as you look at who is the most winning quarterback of all time. That's who you think is the most successful quarterback. It doesn't necessarily matter if he threw for 5,000 yards or not.
Yeah, and real quick to just kind of wrap things up for at least my perspective on the quarterback thing. I totally agree with you. If a player was clearly a product of his system and was not elevating a football team, I would call them a system quarterback. Brock Purdy is somebody that I kind of put in that tier, whereas Jalen Hurts I don't think belongs there because although you're right about how people shape his rushing production versus passing, he is still elevating the team and carrying them through his legs. Last week, I think it's a foregone conclusion if you watch that game. They won because of Jalen Hurts. Was it through the air? No. But you still won because of your quarterback, so why does it matter how in the modern day NFL? I just think it's interesting. But yeah, I don't know. It's a fascinating matchup. I think Pat Mahomes does a lot of things that are similar to what Jalen does. Great. That Mahomes gets credit for and Jalen gets knocked for. So I don't know. I just clearly, as you guys can tell, I have very passionate feelings about this, but I just think quarterback narratives and dialogue right now is just the rules are always different, and it's very fascinating to me.
It's depending on the fan base as well, and everybody's going to turn a little bit.
You can tell I've been on Chargers Twitter too much the last few weeks.
Yeah, no one
as you guys did last week.
That's a dark place to go, sir.
Yeah.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
Somebody's leaving Ford Field on Sunday 0-2.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast.
First of all, what was Monday night like, and what was your reaction? And now as the dust is settled, how do you feel about this weekend?
Yeah, Monday night and really week one was a real tough, like hard not to overreact kind of situation, because we've been waiting to see what everything was going to be. And so then, of course, whatever we see in the first game of Ben Johnson's offense and Dennis Allen's defense, that's going to be like the ultimatum and really like, oh, must be what the Bears are as a team, when it's hard to keep it in perspective and say, no, this is like their first actual game doing this. Like, we don't have to think that everything we saw in week one is exactly what it's going to be the rest of the season. And yet there was something still particularly like painfully familiar about team blows it at the end and has a win slip right out of their fingertips in a way that felt kind of Eberflusian, but at least it kind of felt like they did it. They got there, like the result felt the same, but they got there in a different way. So at least it's a different kind of disappointment, because expectations were so much higher that they thought, especially with how strong they started that game, that, oh, everything was solved. And then all of a sudden it felt like nothing was solved.
Interesting here in Detroit. People are panicking. People do not like this. The expectations have been raised. The bar has been raised. Dan Campbell said on Wednesday, hey, look, we're okay with fans being upset that we laid an egg. We understand we need to play better and should be better. But people are just freaking out because you got the two new coordinators. You got the new center, the new right guard, heck, a new left guard. And the Lions really got their clocks cleaned by Pete Bukowski's Packers. I'm sure a lot of my listeners were like, oh gosh, they were avoiding Pete all week, but seriously, it just was not a good performance. But you get 16 more of these, and it's, certainly time to come home. And I think the biggest storyline for Detroit is cleaning up the communication and getting back to playing their brand of football, powering the football on the ground, Montgomery, Gibbs, and just playing better. Really all three phases, including the kicking game. Kick returns were messy. Kick coverage was messy. All of that kind of has to be the story in Detroit. What about in Chicago? What's the biggest storyline for you?
Yeah, it's a very similar feeling, right? Where it's like it just was messier than it was supposed to be. Communication on offense, timing of routes and throws, but then also timing of the snap count. They had like 3 or 4 false starts in that game, 12 penalties as a whole, like a lot of different things that go wrong that all collectively add up to a loss. And you feel like, well, some of that stuff should generally be pretty quick fix stuff, and some of it might be longer running issues here, where if the offensive line was not nearly as improved as it was supposed to be. And so there's some injuries on defense that until those guys come back, you can't just fix it and make the backups somehow way better than they actually are supposed to be. So there's also the similar feeling of like, you don't want to panic and throw everything out the window just yet, but you need to see some drastic improvement. And it feels like, for me, like, it's not a must-win game for both teams in week 2, but it's definitely a must be a lot better, or else everyone's really going to panic.
Ben Johnson took some blame after the game on Monday night and did so again on Tuesday, just about clock management. Were you surprised that everybody knows you need the 2-minute warning as your timeout? And except apparently him and the special teams coach, that was a big snafu the other night, wasn't it?
Well, it was more so. I mean, it is at the end of the day, it does fall on the coaching staff, but like they believed their kicker when they asked him and he said he could get it out of the back of the end zone. They said, all right, get it out of the back of the end zone. And he couldn't. He just doesn't have the leg. And maybe they should have known better, but maybe you want to trust your guys in the first game and not overrule them and not say, well, you say you can do it, but we don't trust you, so we're not going to have you do it. Like, I get that can be a difficult thing to navigate, but a lot of that's, first time head coach in his first game he had a bad challenge flag he threw, but those things tend to fall a little bit lower on the level of like things that directly resulted in a loss. I mean, Caleb Williams missed some throws that he absolutely needs to hit at this stage of his career. The offensive line and the running game were a lot worse than they should have been. The pass rush disappeared, and maybe they didn't adjust as well as the Vikings did from a coaching standpoint. That all those things absolutely quickly need to be better. And I'm curious for you from Detroit's perspective. Yeah. A lot of Bears fans are wondering, when you look at adjustments Detroit needs to make, like how much felt like a direct result of new coordinators and how much felt like a direct result of new players, on the offensive line and some other changes they did on defense.
I just think it's everything. I really do. It's the only person that got a game ball for me, and I do game balls on our Sunday show, was Isaac Tesla, and he caught one pass. It was the most unbelievable catch of all time. It was really damn good. It meant nothing. It was the end of the game. They needed a score. They were coming down the field. So I gave him a game ball for the effort, but everybody is to blame. You know, I mean, to sit here and say, all right, Hank Fraley, the Lions offensive line coach, I think is their best assistant. He didn't just get dumb in one game. And really, and send guys out there to fail. But my goodness, Graham Glasgow at center taking over for Ragnow, and Frank's retirement is a big storyline. But Glasgow played a very poor game, the lowest rated offensive player on the Lions, according to PFF. He was brutal. Christian Mahogany, the left guard who played the Bears last year and played well, really was bad. Tate Ratledge, the first round pick at right guard, was no good. The D line couldn't get any pressure. It was, first drive of the game, Jordan Love's jersey is as clean as it ever was, and he goes 8 for 8. I mean, you got to put some pressure on him. Aiden Hutchinson didn't have a tackle in that game. So I think it's a mix of everything. The coaches admitted maybe they should have played some guys in the preseason. Maybe they should have played some of the younger guys in the preseason. Also, they just looked unprepared, and I think that's on everybody. So
it's striking how similar the issues are for both teams. Like for the Bears, it was interior offensive line. Like center Drew Dahlman was supposed to be an upgrade. He was
horrible.
And Jonah Jackson was even worse. I mean, at least Lions fans are familiar with Jonah Jackson's struggles, and it felt like more of that Jonah Jackson than the Pro Bowler from 2022. And then that's like the Lions, the pass rush. Like they sacked JJ McCarthy on the first 2 drives, and then the pass rush was totally gone from there for the rest of the game. And it's funny how like both of these teams are looking to improve a lot of the same things now against each other in week 2.
No, I think you're right. And I think both defenses are better than what they showed. Certainly the Vikings in the second half ran the ball right down the Bears' throats. I'm a Dexter fan. He got pushed around a little bit. Obviously, some of the additions on the interior of that defensive line. Sweat made that one play, but like you said, second half couldn't get to McCarthy. And that defense is good. My question's with your quarterback. I just wonder if he is going to be the guy. I think he's got to get a full season. This talk of, the Caleb Williams experiment, I think that's for the talking heads on TV. He's going to get a whole year, of course. But I think the Lions also, same thing, can be better. I mean, just the fact of the matter is Jordan Love had way too much time to throw all day. And guys they expected a lot more from, including Aiden Hutchinson, who's just coming back from a leg injury, Marcus Davenport, even some guys in the secondary. DJ Reed really struggled, lowest defender on the PFF scores on the defensive side. So yeah, it wasn't good.
Quick thing on Hutchinson.
Yeah.
Did the Micah Parsons deal totally ruin the Lions' chances of signing him to an extension? Is there a direct
Hutchinson to an extension?
Yeah, because there was talk of Hutchinson getting a deal, and then Parsons gets $45 million, and then all of a sudden the report comes out that Hutchinson's not going to get a deal, and they're just going to play.
No, I mean, I still think he's going to stay. I see no scenario where it even gets to a franchise tag situation in a couple of years. I don't. But he is too important. The Lions have done a great job retaining their own guys. Heck, they got Jamison Williams signed past 2027 now on a pretty team-friendly deal at $27 million a year, which for a receiver in 2 years could be up to $35, $37 million. So no, I think it'll be okay. I think people just panic when they didn't get him signed before the season, but he's not going anywhere. I think he's just too popular, local kid from here and from the University of Michigan. And I think they'll figure that out.
Yeah. I guess did it screw them from getting him on a good deal? Like they were.
Well, that's a good question. I mean,
Parsons jumped up that price tag all of a sudden.
Oh, he did.
Shit, never mind. Gotta wait.
But Parsons looked the part, even in limited snaps, looked the part of a guy that deserved that $47 million. Just what he brought to the table that whole day on Sunday. I think his moxie, his aura, just his presence there kind of really fired the Packers and their crowd up. And the Lions never really recovered from it.
The NFL season is finally here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
With Brock Purdy likely out this weekend, the New Orleans Saints have a chance to surprise on Sunday.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The number one story for both of these teams has to be all around Brock Purdy. Fill us in. What are we expecting when it comes to Brock Purdy and the 49ers? And what does it mean for San Francisco?
At first, I just got to say it's a pleasure to talk to you, Ross, but it's also a pleasure to cover the San Francisco 49ers because it's always just insanity. There's always something crazy going on. They're either drafting top 3, they're taking quarterbacks, there's quarterback controversies, or they're going and losing Super Bowls. And they've done just about everything you could possibly do as an NFL franchise over the course of the last half dozen years, except for hoist the Lombardi. So we'll see if the 49ers can get there this year. But when it comes to Brock Purdy, the latest from Kyle Shanahan is that it's highly unlikely that he's going to play, and potentially Brock Purdy might not play for multiple weeks with a shoulder injury. He's got a toe injury as well. Kyle Shanahan thinks he pointed the play where Brock Purdy got hurt, but it's on shot right now for this week, and it's potentially multiple weeks that we might have a chance to see Mac Jones and not Brock Purdy starting for the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, and I imagine, Brian, that's compounded big time because Brandon Ayuk, of course, still working his way back overall at the wide receiver spot. George Kittle still are on injured reserve now with the hamstring injury. Juwan Jennings also dealing with some things. So where does the 49ers kind of go here? And who are some of the players that the New Orleans Saints fans need to know that might be stepping in around Mac Jones?
You feel really good right now if you drafted Christian McCaffrey or Ricky Pearsall in your fantasy leagues. I was one of those that drafted Christian McCaffrey 1.1 last year. Did not work out great for me. Christian McCaffrey says that it was blown out of proportion with his calf, which you could see why people would blow that out of proportion. But it's going to be a lot of Christian McCaffrey as it was last week. He got 31 touches last week, 22 carries, 9 receptions. He's on pace for 517 touches. It's unsustainable, but for right now, Kyle Shanahan's trying to win some football games, and that's his best weapon on the offensive side of the ball. If you extrapolate out the last few games going into the end of last year when Ricky Pearsall really started to break out for the 49ers, he's on a 17-game pace of over 100 catches, 1,800 receiving yards, and 11 touchdowns. So that's the guy right now in the passing game for the 49ers, especially with no George Kittle out there. So expect a heavy dose of the run game, a heavy dose of Christian McCaffrey, and when Mac Jones or Brock Purdy, if there's a chance he plays, drop back, they're going to be looking for number one, Ricky Pearsall quite often.
Yeah. A lot of Saints fans really liked Ricky Pearsall coming out of the draft. Really skilled guy, great route runner, just an awesome, gritty player out there. And look, the Saints passing defense had a pretty good day up against the Arizona Cardinals, but did give up some explosive moments, and in particular also gave up over 140 rushing yards. So you have to imagine that Christian McCaffrey and Kyle Shanahan are looking at this Saints defense kind of licking their chops a little bit. They're excited, I imagine.
That's the game right there. And we can probably end the podcast because if the 49ers are able to run the ball like they want to, and they are going to want to, that's the path for the 49ers, and there's other matchups that we're going to get into, but that's a huge one. And it always is, Kyle Shanahan wants to run the football. It's not going to be a surprise to the Saints. They're like, oh man, they're really trying to run the ball today and play balanced football. That's what Kyle Shanahan wants to do. He wants to have his entire playbook at his disposal all the time. And he'll lean into the run if he has to and if he can. And so that's going to be job number one for the Saints defense is stopping the run clearly. And real quick note on George Kittle and the injury, and it kind of brings it into perspective because we already knew the ACL injury was the major injury coming into the year was Brandon Ayuk's ACL, and that he'd be out for probably at least 6 weeks or so. Well, now after getting put on IR through week 5 for George Kittle, he might have played one extra quarter of football year than Brandon Ayuk. So to put that into perspective, right? They're going to miss just as much George Kittle just from one hamstring injury potentially as Brandon Ayuk this season if he does come back, and they both come back together in week 6, which will be welcomed at that point. We'll see where the 49ers are then. They got to get through New Orleans and the Saints first, which is never an easy place to play.
What's kind of the confidence meter in Mac Jones to step in and do this? Because we've seen guys like Sam Darnold, for instance, come out of the other side of the San Francisco 49ers, a much better quarterback. What's the chance here for Mac Jones to be able to do the same?
Yeah, I think that's why Mac Jones is here. He wants that Kyle Shanahan car wash, right? He wants to come out clean on the other side and for teams to treat him like a starter, because I don't think teams were really treating him like a starter going into this offseason.
Yeah.
So that's a great place for him to be a backup. And now he gets an opportunity to prove that he's still a starter. I think it's a great scheme for him. He probably doesn't have all the weapons he hoped he would have had at his disposal with Kittle and potentially Brandon Ayuk, although he already knew the Brandon Ayuk injury was happening. But Juwan Jennings, MRIs were good. So Juwan Jennings is going to probably be out there. Don't know 100% yet, but he'll probably be out there with, Kendrick Bourne, who was just signed by the 49ers as well, who Mac Jones has thrown the ball to at least before in his NFL career too. So might have a little rapport there for Mac Jones, but expectations aren't super high. I tend to think he's going to be okay. And, whether it's Mac Jones or Jimmy Garoppolo or Brock Purdy or Sam Darnold, right? Kyle Shanahan is a really good offensive mind, and he's able to elevate his quarterbacks. And if you can throw with some anticipation and get the ball out in timing, you're going to be okay. And look, Mac has a better arm than Brock Purdy. Now, is he as much of a playmaker? Is he going to have that, that cool factor that Brock Purdy has under pressure, where it seems like nothing ever phases the guy, and the guts that Brock Purdy plays with? Does Mac Jones have that? I don't know. So we'll see if Carl Granderson and company can get after him, if that really wreaks havoc. But right now, I think I'm optimistic that he'll be all right. I don't know if he'll be great, but he'll be all right.
We're taking a look at the biggest matchups that can change the way that this game goes. Brian, why don't you start us off here? What's one of the big matchups that you're watching for the 49ers offense up against the Saints defense?
Well, the big one is the run game we talked about earlier. But beyond that, I think I'm fascinated by maybe some insider knowledge that was gained by the new Saints defensive coordinator in Brandon Staley.
Yeah.
From his time as his assistant head coach, because Kyle didn't get to learn what Staley's defense was, because Staley wasn't defensive coordinator. He was just hanging out, getting intel on Kyle Shanahan and how he runs his offense. And so does he have a little extra leg up with what Kyle Shanahan is doing, or a better idea of how to stop Kyle Shanahan's offense now, since he was, in those meetings and in the building? I don't know exactly what meetings he was in, but he was helping out with the offensive side of the ball as well. So he has some extra insider knowledge, and then now he gets to, run his own defense against that with the Saints. So I'm fascinated by that. Does that give him a leg up? I don't know, but clearly I think the 49ers are going to want to run the ball. How do they match up with Christian McCaffrey coming out of the backfield? Because Kyle Shanahan loves to put linebackers in a blender, play action passes, all kinds of motion, throw the ball, over the middle of the field. I've called Kyle Shanahan's offense aggressively intermediate. And people always want to call Kyle Shanahan quarterbacks, whether it's Jimmy G or Brock Purdy, they want to call him check down merchants, check down Charlies. They don't check the ball down in this offense. They're aggressively intermediate. They want tight window throws, and they'll throw without anticipation. They'll throw it by your ear as a linebacker. And you can also get turnovers that way as well. So who wins the middle of the football field might be the ones who win this football game. And I'm really fascinated to see if maybe Brandon Staley learned something over the course of his time with Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That is a big one. We actually asked Kellen Moore on Wednesday's press conference if he talked to Brandon Staley at all about what it is that Kyle Shanahan did in his time with the 49ers. And he kind of played it coy and everything like that. But it's come up over the course of the week. Like, hey, man, what'd you see? What are they doing?
They're a bunch of lying liars, man.
every darn one of them.
Yeah. Kyle Shanahan not wanting to talk about the injuries and let you know exactly what's going on. And of course, we're not going to tell you that, they got a lot of goodies, and we'll see. But it's, you already know what's coming, right? You know what's coming. Can you stop it?
Yeah.
It might be some big boy football up front.
Yeah, absolutely. The next thing for me, sticking with the Saints defense and the 49ers offense, keeping it in that realm, is, to me, the Saints pass rushers. We don't know if former San Francisco 49er, in fact, Chase Young, is going to be available or isn't going to be available for this game just yet. At the time of recording this, we do know that he did not practice on Wednesday at Saints practice. He missed last week up against the Arizona Cardinals, dealing with a calf injury that he sustained in practice, a habitual issue for the New Orleans Saints over the course of the past couple of years, by the way. So that's been a point of frustration for the organization, and I'm sure for the fan base as well. But getting pressure on Mac Jones or Brock Purdy or Adrian Martinez, whoever it is that's back there, that's going to be a key in this one. And the 49ers, Brock Purdy was under a career high in terms of pressure percentage last week, right? Going up against Seattle, it was 50-something%, over 50% of the time that he was under pressure. The Saints would benefit from replicating that, especially if Mac Jones, who hasn't seen a lot of action in recent years, getting that pressure on him would be major and have a big time impact. Saints walked away with 5 sacks last week, 3 from the defensive line, 1 from the linebackers, and 1 from the slot corner on a key late third down. Saints will need to kind of ramp that up and reproduce a little bit of that, getting into the backfield and causing some havoc for the whichever quarterback is back there.
Yeah, no doubt. And Trent Williams even looked human last week. And, there was some nice reps he had, but there was also times when he looked like he was rusty, and he practiced less than any veteran on the team over the course of the summer. So it's natural that if he was somewhat rusty coming into the game. Dominic Pooney, I think, playing a little bit hurt right now as well. So, the 49ers offensive line wasn't great in protection. Purdy was pressured too often, and they weren't creating a lot of space in the run game. So it's an offensive line that could be had right now if the Saints defensive line is up to the task.
Yeah, Saints kind of running into them at the quote unquote right time. I'm using the heavy air quotes because we don't want to say that about people's injuries and things like that. But the early season, adjustments and stuff like that are happening for some of these players Trent Williams is one of the best. He's going to be great. But at the early point in the season, this is the right time to kind of catch him if he hasn't been practicing all too much. What are you looking at if we reverse the field and we're talking about that San Francisco defense up against the Saints offense?
Well, really the only thing that was working for the Seattle Seahawks against the 49ers was throwing to Jackson Smith and Jigba. And he kind of moved around and played a lot in the slot, a lot outside. Cooper Kupp got into the action a little bit, but the guy who was targeted the most on the 49ers defense, as you can expect, is a rookie starter in the nickel, late third round pick, nickel cornerback, Upton Stout. And he had the lowest PFF grade on the team, which is not surprising because of how often he was targeted. He had a big penalty as well near the end zone, and kept a drive alive for the Seattle Seahawks. So I expect that, that it's one of the lowest hanging fruits that when you're in the NFL, okay, we got a rookie in the slot, let's go target him. So, Rashid Shaheed, I would imagine, would be someone who is a big part of the game plan anyway for the New Orleans Saints, and target him short, catch and run stuff, deep, try to really take advantage of a young defensive back on the 49ers roster. They're also starting a safety behind him in Marquez Siegel. So, how the rookies hold up is really a big factor for the San Francisco 49ers with the 3 rookie defensive linemen that play a big part in the rotation as well.